Welcome one and all. How you doing this fine afternoon? We are here, and we're live recording this episode of the Ferret Cafe podcast. Today's episode is, I made it sci-fi themed, because every single topic that I wanted to do was sci-fi.
Greetings!
For this episode. So, if you don't like sci-fi, you can fuck right off. But yes, welcome to the Fair Cafe podcast. Just a chill time here, folks. Just a chill time. We're going to sit back, relax, maybe even sip on a little bit of
Oh, can't do that.
coffee. But I'm just drinking water. but you could sip on a cup of Joe.
Oh, I missed.
Hey, we got some new sound commands in the repertoire here. We got a few new ones in there. Yeah.
Oh my God!
There they all are. This is the perfect time to be trying out all the new sound commands. Couldn't do that during the pre-show. Oh no. But yeah, welcome in everyone. We're gonna jump right in today.
Oh, can't do that.
We're gonna jump right in today, and we are going to just get started. Just get started. I had Chipotle today, as sometimes I do. Maybe not sometimes, but maybe a lot of times do. And yeah, I got that like Chipotle. I've had a rough start to this episode. Usually this is the point where I would stop and restart because I'm not doing a good intro. But we're live. We're here and we're live. Ooh. Boom. All right. All right. Yeah. So yeah. I had a pretty good Chipotle. I get the corn salsa, and the jalapeno chunks were just too big, which is kind of annoying at times. Like I like jalapeno. Don't get me wrong, but oh my goodness, like there was just like big chunks of it mixed in, and I was like, yeah, we can tone back. We can tone back the freaking jalapeno, please. So yeah, I'm pretty full right now. I ate the Chipotle like an hour and a half ago at this point, and it really filled me up today. Because yes, I did get a bit blessed. I got I'm pretty sure I got like extra rice, even though I didn't ask for it. And rice fills you up pretty fast. Rice fills you up pretty fast. So I apologize for the rough opening here, but we'll get it going here. We'll get it going. Kenobi, if you want to join the cafe waiting room, because the first topic today is Andor season 1. If you haven't watched Andor yet, you are missing out on a pretty good sci-fi series. Just to kind of get us started here before Kenobi joins, Andor is a series done by the same guy who did the Bourne trilogy, Duplicity. I'm not sure. I've never seen that one, but it's a spy movie. And he does do a lot of spy movies. His name is Tony Gilroy. Now, he didn't direct every single episode, but his style was definitely used for the most part throughout the entire show's runtime. This is a prequel to Rogue One, meaning that technically you could say it's a sequel to Revenge of the Sith. It doesn't directly lead into Rogue One, mind you. But you can watch Rogue One directly after this and, not really miss a beat, And then, of course, you would watch A New Hope after that. So this is a prequel. It's 5 years before the events of Rogue One. And you follow Andor in that. So Cassian Andor is played by Diego... Wait. Am I reading this name right? Yes, Diego Luna, who was also the executive producer on it as well. There's a couple other major characters in here. Luthen, who was played by Stellan Skarsgård. Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly. What a name. Dedra was played by Nice Go. Citra, played by Varda Sethu. And a bunch of other people as well in there, which we'll of course talk about. I mean, from this point on, I will definitely only be using first names. There's a guy from The Bear in this, Eban Mas Bachrach. Is that how you say his name? He plays Arvel Skeen. And a lot of people say like, oh, it's the guy from The Bear. No. Actually, a lot of people who watch The Bear say, oh, it's the guy from Andor. In my case, because I watched this afterwards, I say, oh, it's the guy from The Bear. Yeah. Yes, chef. Okay, let's get Kenobi in here. Who did? He was the one who suggested the topic. Kenobi, are you there?
Hello there.
Welcome back for another episode. The first twofer, I believe.
Hello there.
That is correct.
How are you doing today, Kenobi? I hope you're doing well.
Things could be better.
That's just the spirit we
Things could be
need.
better. That's how it is.
Let's try and raise your
Let's
spirits.
go.
Let's try and raise your spirits here. Let me know if you have any trouble hearing Kenobi. Obviously, this is my first time watching Andor. I put it on the back burner for quite some time, and obviously, kind of do regret that because it is a really good show, and I was mostly watching the stuff related to Mandalorian, which kind of got me burnt out on the Star Wars stuff, which we talked about in the last episode that we did, the first episode of the podcast actually, where we discussed Star Wars and just the state of Star Wars and where we were in our lives when we first started watching and enjoying Star Wars. And we talked about how the Mandalorian has kind of gone down in quality, how Boba Fett was absolutely awful, how Kenobi was, the show Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi was bad as well. But Andor actually came out.
It was terrible.
Andor kind of came out like, didn't Andor come out after season 2 of The Mandalorian, something like that?
I believe so. Hold on. Came out September 21, 22. September 21, 2022. So I think so.
I know when it came out, there was people already kind of feeling the burn from the Star Wars stuff, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of people watch this and immediately were like, oh yeah, this is really good. Like, this is more of what we want or what we need from Star Wars. And I tend to agree that we definitely need something like this. Maybe not every single show needs to be Andor, obviously, because you do still need like the more dumb fun kind of shows like your Mandalorians. But having something different like this, kind of be more of like a thriller.
Actually, no. The Andor didn't got released after Mandalorian season 2. It got actually released pretty much after the crappy TV shows, which we had the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi one.
Ah, okay, so it's even worse than I thought in terms of where it actually was. I think people were itching for like an actual good Star Wars thing because, I mean, this is also after the travesty of the sequel trilogy, which we talked about last week. And yeah, this is kind of exactly what the Star Wars needed in general to kind of kickstart something good again, because we got the Mandalorian after what, The Last Jedi and whatever, just some bad Star Wars stuff. We got the Mandalorian season 1, like that was good, right? I mean, season 1 and 2 of the Mandalorian, pretty good.
Those were the fresh ones, so yes.
Yeah, and then things kind of went a bit awry, especially after the rise of Skywalker.
They went downhill.
But luckily, at the bottom of the hill was Andor, which definitely takes the cake for, as of right now, my favorite Star Wars property done by Disney. And the funny thing is, like, it's not even like truly a Star Wars story per se, because you could slot this into a James Bond film, or maybe a series based on like Jason Bourne, James Bond, and Tom Cruise's in Mission Impossible, almost, really. You could probably slot those characters and those settings into this. The one thing that makes this Star Wars is the thick setting of the Star Wars universe. And I know you want to say something, so I'll be quick here. But I think that not only the setting is immaculate for this, I think that the world building that they do in the show topples over anything that we've seen from Disney thus far, really. Maybe minus some things that happened in The Mandalorian. So I think the world building on top of the setting for the story is just immaculate. They add so much to the universe, and a lot of shows that they do, like the Kenobi show, like the Boba Fett show, it doesn't add anything new, and what they do add is not great. But this show really expanded the universe in ways that I wasn't expecting, which is really nice, because a lot of times when they do that, it kind of feels thrown in.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like it felt exactly like something like James Bond, Jason Bourne, or anybody of those type of guys. I think that would be more somebody maybe Han Solo or somebody else like that. But yeah, it does feel a little bit. But from what I read from the director, he took this from entirely the inspiration from actually from an old movie from made like 56 or something like that, which is like a Cold War movie, which is called the Battle of Algiers, which shows pretty much kind of shows the same thing, how, because during the time the Algeria was during the French authority, and how they fought against it pretty much, and it was shown in the movie how the brutality was exactly between the streets, between the army and stuff like that. And that's where the director captured the whole ideas to his project Andor.
And I'm guessing that it was that movie is a bit of a political thriller.
It is a political thriller. It is, because the way how it's shown, the whole shenanigans that was happening during during this Algerian war, what they called, against the French government, that even got banned in France because it showed the truth, the truth of what was happening inside.
You can see that in the show. They definitely later on in the episodes, when the Empire does take over the planet, that the vibe changes quite a bit, which I definitely can tell from what you're saying. Like, there's definitely that opposing force that comes in.
Well, actually, the whole TV show was pretty much the opposing forces, pretty much.
Right. I would say that, like, what's the planet they're on again? I'm blanking on it right now. The main one.
We're under Ferrix.
Ferrix. I knew it started with an F. I just couldn't get the name out. Ferrix. You start off and you see that, like, that town that they're in is pretty loosey goosey. Like, there's really no overwhelming force of anyone there, even though there is the security who kind of handles the sector. Because of their incompetence, the Empire has to come in and start, setting guidelines and walking the streets. Like, obviously when Andor goes back to Ferrix, there's stormtroopers in the streets. There's, the hotel is taken over by the Empire. So I would say after those first 3 initial episodes, that's where you start to see the imposing force of the Empire. Like, the Empire is kind of like an afterthought in the first 3 episodes, I would say, because it's mostly just Andor working to try and escape. Obviously he killed the 2 security guards, so he's trying to escape them and get out of the area before they can catch up to him. And so after the incompetency of the 3rd episode, the Empire has to then enforce their iron will on Ferrix. So yeah, it just takes a little bit. It takes like 3 episodes for the Empire to finally like come into full view in the show.
Well, I mean, at first they thought it was nothing, maybe the security could handle it, but once they connected the dots and they're like, oh, he's probably working with the rebels and he's probably working with the guy we need to capture, so they're like, oh, I guess buckle in, soldiers, so we're going for a ride,
Yeah, but it takes longer for them to get to that than what you're learning to. I mean, they really don't like. Obviously, there's the one IBS soldier or officer who starts to try and poke around, but they really don't connect Andor to Axis, as they later call him, until like episode 6 or so. And by the time that they like actually start trying to hunt him down, they don't realize that they already have him captured and working on a base making Death Star parts.
I guess it wasn't that necessary to call the truce before things got messy, I guess. I mean, you have to understand, this is it's a planet where all those irons around, pretty much the metals that they're working and they give to the Empire. I mean, this is part of the source where they do scraps and everything. I mean, even the planet Ferrix has FER, which is fair, which means iron in Latin, pretty much. So it kind of makes sense, But the Imperial forces, I believe why they didn't care at first is probably because they thought that maybe the security could handle it but once they connected the dots from Cyril Karn, when he said that it could be something way more dangerous or something, that's where the Imperial Security Bureau kind of kicks in,
Right. But you're talking like the Empire knew about the 2 security guards who died, and they knew like already that Andor was the one who stole the device from the shipping yards or the building yards, and that doesn't really come into play until like episode 4 or 5, when that ISB agent starts to sniff around and pull up documents. So what you're saying, although true, what I'm saying is the Empire really doesn't impose their will until that 4th or so episode, after the security really drops the ball. They realize, oh, this isn't going to work. We need to just take over control of this area. They thought that the security could do it. That is true. But they don't. It's not immediate that the Empire is like on the trail of Andor and it's the Empire hunting them down. It's that security bureau. It's the guy who's trying to, he's trying to really put on the big boy pants, and he's like, I'm gonna take down this motherfucker because of my my personality, which was formed by my mom. So yeah, I mean, but once the Empire does get in there, like, yeah, then obviously the vibe of the town changes, and that's really what I was trying to get to was this show does a good job of like showing a town pre-Empire practically, where they're kind of just, they do their thing. When the security shows up, you start to see like, okay, the town is like, they obviously have like a lot of stuff going on, right? They start banging on the metal and stuff to warn Andor that the security's coming for him and stuff like that. And once the Empire gets there, then the vibe of the town changes from being more like a regular town, and it turns more into a military district with all the soldiers walking around and stuff like that. So that's what I was trying to get to, was the Empire starts off being almost a non-factor, but quickly after shit hits the fan is when they show up, and that's when like the plot of the show really gets going, is the chase after Andor and the rest of the small rebel group that is hiding out, which then turns the show from more of like a action thriller to more of like a spy thriller, essentially, because you got the planning stage and then they go do the job. I feel like that's more of a spy thriller part. So the show does change some genres here and there. The underlying one is obviously thriller and drama, sure, but some of the subgenres kind of change a little bit as we go on.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it.
And I mean, I would say you could probably chop this whole show up into like 4 sections, each one with their own unique genres, I guess you could say, because the first 3 episodes, like I said, it's more of an action thriller. There's way more going on in terms of actions happening. Obviously, you still have like the build up of the security, the head of security tracking down Andor, which of course all amounts to the action scene in the 3rd episode, and then after that, Andor is taken to the other planet where the rebel conspirators are, who want to take out a very big loan from the Empire. And that definitely turns into more of like a spy thriller, especially by the end of I think it's like 3 episodes that it takes for them to get to the to the vault, the bank vault, essentially, inside of the dam. It's essentially it's definitely like a true spy thriller all the way up until that last part where people are starting to break off from the group and they want to do their own thing. And then there's another section that's more of like a political thriller where you have Mon Mothma trying to cover up what she's doing to try and help the rebels, along with Luthen. I'm sorry.
Luthen.
And that's kind of more of like a political political thriller aspect, because there's a lot of like she's got to do a lot of talking and put on a mask, and I really like this aspect of showing Mon Mothma before she became a rebel leader. And I think that's another thing that I really love about the world building, is like we're expanding on this character that we know. She's not the focal point, but she is there, and she is doing a lot of things to kind of flesh out her character more than just being a rebel leader, right? And then the last couple episodes do get a bit mixed up, but it does go back to being more of like an action thriller, kind of like a prison escape, which I really I mean, man, I really like those 2 episodes where they're planning to get out of the prison. The prison break, I was on the edge of my seat while that was all happening. It was such a great moment in the show, and yeah, that's more of like an action thriller section. I think the rest of the show really is more action focused towards the end, even though there's still like political stuff going on and stuff like that. I think that the final act is kind of closer to the first act, where the main stuff is the action for the episodes.
Yeah. Well, exactly. For the first 3 episodes, it was more of a build up, like for each character that we see from episode 1 to 3. Like we see a build up for the Karn, for Andor, for a little bit for Luthen, all their surroundings, pretty much. What else is there?
Yeah, and you just kind
There's
of
like
you start to get to know the characters. Like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the characters from the first 3 episodes, they don't necessarily all stick around for the entire thing, but they are there with their subplots and stuff like that going on.
So-
And the kind of the same thing about like episode 4, 5, and 6. It kind of starts back at square one where you're getting these new characters and you're learning about them, and then by the time the 6th episode comes around, the action happens again, and some characters come back, some of them don't. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a little bit of a revolving wheel there, but it works pretty well.
Yeah. Oh man, it took a lot of notes. I took a lot of notes. Yeah, exactly. Like, I like the characters that Cassian was around, like with his sort of like his adoptive mother, Marva, that she still wants to be like this part of the rebel cause, pretty much,
Yeah.
until the end. Same thing for his and same thing for like Karn, because I've been like going through with all the breakdown about the episodes, and Karn and Andor, they're kind of going on the same ride, like in parallel in a lot of those episodes.
Yeah, I definitely could see that.
Yeah, they like kind of a roller coaster for them, and it's funny thing about the funny thing, I don't know if you noticed about his homeworld of Cassian, which is called what's it called again? Hold on. God damn it. Kenari. His home planet, which is called Kenari, where they're all young. I don't know if from seeing the first episode, they saw like a vessel and they had a gas leak, right? And it's apparently was a Republican era vessel, and later on they actually show the dead pilots that were part of CIS, the Confederacy pilots, pretty much. So it was pretty much interesting that they actually like around what time that happened,
Yeah, that is interesting. I wasn't even
So
thinking
you-
about that.
Yeah, no, I actually took a lot of notes, like I told you. 6 pages straight, by the way. Yeah, and they don't. So it was pretty amazing with all those nights. I didn't even bother to check like those. I'm like, I just thought they were dead pirates until I realized, oh, okay, those are separatists. Okay, I gotcha.
That's interesting though, because I didn't even realize that. I just kind of thought that they just random ship crashing down on the planet,
Yeah, and there's a fun factor actually about the language they were speaking. Everyone had to learn that language because it was like a made-up language from languages that we know. So they kind of mixed up the words, and they had to learn that. According to the actress who was playing Marva, when she was doing like a review. That was pretty interesting. I didn't even know that myself.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Star Wars I guess any language from a movie that kind of has to be built from the ground up. It kind of does start as gibberish, but I believe they brought in a language expert to. Well, I guess that they would, any movie or show that's trying to make a new language would bring in like a language expert and try and give it a unique, probably. I mean, obviously for this alien feel to it, even though it is still humans speaking the language. And I thought that I think that Lucy said this in the Discord about why don't they have subtitles for the alien characters, the alien languages, and I think that would take away a little bit of that charm that Star Wars has, where I would say 90% of Star Wars doesn't have subtitles for the alien races. And really, where you get the, what are they saying? You get that from the tone of the voice and from other people interacting with them, of course. Specifically, R2-D2 is a big one. R2-D2 just has a series of beeps and whoops, and Anakin and later on Luke. You understand what R2-D2 is saying because of how they react to, you know, what the different noises they make. And they do that a lot in Star Wars. And
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the same thing for Chewbacca when it's like, oh, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and Han and sometimes C-3PO are they're the translators for us.
Yeah.
And I you do see that in Andor, especially in the first episode when they talk to the one alien dude, who's like just the thug that's there, and it's really interesting.
With Nurchi, right? What's his name? Nurchi?
Hey, you took more detailed notes than me, so I'll nod in agreement on that one.
Where Andor was owning money to the guy, right?
Yeah.
When he came, his name was Nurchi.
So, yeah, and they put you in that place during the Cassian being young years. Where you just you don't understand what they're saying per se, but you kind of I guess you don't understand the language, but you understand what they are doing. Obviously, Andor gets allowed to come with them on the expedition to find the crashed ship, and there's a little bit of conversation in there. He has to leave his sister behind, or whoever that was, the young girl behind, to follow his big sister. And you don't really need those pieces filled in for you, because the tone of the voices, what they're doing after they say something, is really is how you understand the language. And I do really like the end of that young Cassian storyline, where they find him in the ship, and he's like beating it up, and they don't want to leave him there.
Yeah, I was getting there, but you kind of beat me to it. Yeah, actually, not true. They did use translations for some aliens, though.
That's what I mean. Like 90% of Star Wars, though, is unsubtitled.
Yeah, if you remember when they escaped, there were 2 aliens that captured them. They gave us translations for them.
I don't remember seeing the translations pop up on. I wasn't watching it with subtitles though, but you can kind of get the vibe of what they're saying anyway, because they do say a few recognizable words in there that must not be in their language. Like I'm pretty sure they say like Kyber and Crystal or something like that, right? Or
well, I mean, sure, yeah. Well,
I maybe that was a different alien that I'm thinking of, but when those two, like, I mean, not really bounty hunters. They were just kind of hanging out. They were residents of the area before the water was pretty much toxic. You could even without the subtitles on, you can kind of understand what they were saying in a few different ways, which was nice. I don't remember there being subtitles. I mean, there could have been subtitles on the screen. I just didn't realize it because I was just kind of watching.
When I was doing the breakdown about of a certain video, they show subtitles, but it was not like subtitles. It was subtitles inside the one from the episode. So I'm like, oh, I guess there are subtitles for some aliens.
Yeah, it's odd that they would choose to put subtitles there. Well, like I said, like 90% of Star Wars though doesn't have subtitles for their alien races.
Yeah, especially if you remember from
Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. It's pretty much all.
No. But remember from A New Hope, it was the same thing. Remember when they go to the cantina, pretty much, or not cantina, like a bar cantina.
No, it's a cantina.
Yeah, it's a cantina. And remember when Luke kind of hit it? It says, what did he say? He doesn't like you. Remember? Yeah,
exactly.
That's what's pretty much, yeah.
And that's what Star Wars is really good at, is having that weird language and then having someone else translate it for them without having to put the subtitles on the screen.
Yeah, actually, that was a genius move. I'm not gonna lie, it was brilliant. You have to like sometimes think and you wonder what they're saying. Are we gonna have a translation? And then you have something that you understand from common sense. You're like, boom, okay, got it. You understood later on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the episodes.
Yeah, I think my favorite section. I think that my favorite section of the show was that time when Andor was in the prison and working with those other prisoners and on making those parts. I felt like that was the moment where the world building really just skyrocketed, and they gave us so much new stuff to the Star Wars universe. You got the floors that they electrify people or whatever, kill them pretty much if they can kill them if they get out of line. You have those boots that the guys wear that are like completely different like color scheme from anything you ever saw the Empire wearing before. They're like orange and gray, and usually it's all like dark, it's whites and blacks and grays. So that really stuck out like a sore thumb. They were using like those pokey rods, the zap people, the different tools they were using, also like the lasers and stuff that came down from the ceiling. Like there was just so much really good world building done in those 2 episodes that I thought was just really, really well done.
Yeah, the prison. I'll get to there. I'm still kind of in episode 2 and 3 for talking here.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can head back. I think that having, if we're talking about episode 1 through 3, the one thing that I really enjoy about the world building in those episodes is that security force that was kind of put in charge of that system, right? Because when you look at any other Star Wars media that it has the Empire in it. Obviously, there's probably some books out there that I'm forgetting about, but for the most part, it's the Empire. It's the Empire and it's ruffians, who are like the antagonists. So you don't usually see like a security force like this one in the show, and it's cool to see like the inner workings of that. Like it's like I said before, it's not really pre-Empire, but it's before the Empire takes hold of that part of the galaxy, which I think is really cool to see, and it's nice world building. Once again.
Well, actually, the show is. Well, you haven't seen Clone Wars TV show, but they have shown security or some forces outside of that as well. For example, the Senate has their own Senate guards from the Clone Wars, and even outside, there are some forces which have their own army, which is not like. Republican or separatist, but just like their own, and it was like those moments were kind of amazing, I have to say.
But the Clone Wars happened before this. I'm talking Empire era stuff right here.
Sure.
So good point. Don't get me wrong.
No,
good point.
No, because you mentioned like something like not imperial forces, but like more like inside the planet itself. That's
right. But we're talking about the Empire era where.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's good to see more of those similarities in the TV shows, pretty much.
Yeah, but I really like the idea of the Empire. I guess not really trusting the security force because they are technically a part of the Empire. But just kind of having them be there in a system that they probably thought, there's not gonna, we don't need to put a full force into here. Like what is it? It's just a place that breaks down scrap metal, essentially, right?
Exactly.
So they trust the security force to get the job done, and because of an overzealous officer in the security force, then the Empire goes, well, I guess we gotta take this over because they're incompetent.
Yeah, I actually like the Time Crabbler. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. The Time Crabbler. You don't know who's Time Crabbler? Time Crabbler.
Time
Grappler.
Grappler?
Grappler.
Explain
It's the guy. Is the guy with a bell? Remember, but it's not a bell with the anvil.
Oh,
The guitars with the
You should have just said the anvil guy. I would have known it immediately.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. His duty job name is called the Time Grappler. That's what I found out. Okay, I didn't even know myself.
Cool title for him.
Yeah. It was pretty cool
man.
because I didn't know what the animal was made of, and I was wondering before it was made of something. Apparently, it was made of Beskar.
Which they used to. What's that for?
Beskar?
Yeah. Is it?
You don't know Beskar? It's the metal that Mandalorians use against like Jedi. Where the lightsaber, doesn't cut very fast. That's
Ah.
best car.
Okay, all right.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Well, yeah, like I haven't watched season 3 of the Mandalorian. I don't know if do they talk about it in that season.
They do talk about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a bit behind
Actually,
on that. Actually.
yeah, actually, the more talk about the book of Boba Fett in there too. So yeah.
I try and forget the book of Boba Fett. Honestly, I've been trying to forget. I only watched like the first 3 episodes, and I try to forget that show ever existed. Honestly.
Actually, the only thing I like the book of Boba Fett is his time, how he survived with the Tusken Raiders. That's it.
Yeah, but they kind of eliminate that whole Legends book about Boba Fett coming back. Like that was so much better than
Yeah.
what they did in.
No, I know the lines were crappy. The story made was crappy. I wasn't sure if I'm watching Boba Fett anymore.
Yeah. Well, when,
Anyways,
when
but-
the punk kids with their pristine bikes come in, that's kind of where I started to lose faith, and then I lost complete faith after they
No.
had more to do in the show.
Actually, the most thing I was like, Boba Fett, you were dead so long time. I mean, I'm sure you had credit somewhere. Couldn't you just hire a force somewhere?
Yeah,
You know?
you would think
Anyways.
that name alone might earn him some stuff too, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever about this. Andor is much more cool.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments from Andor is when the anvil guy punches the stormtrooper off the bell tower. That was so
yeah.
good. I love that so much.
Yeah. Summer mentioned it was like, this is Ferrix.
I actually there's a lot of people who make fun of stormtroopers because they think that they have bad aim, simply from one part of A New Hope where they were letting Luke and the rest of them escape onto the Millennium Falcon to find Yavin.
That's
Okay?
That's where-
This show shows how deadly stormtroopers are. Yes or no?
yes.
Thank you. It's time, Kenobi. It's time. It's time to stop slandering stormtroopers. Okay, they miss a couple
Listen,
shots in A
listen.
New Hope because they're letting them escape, and it's now fact that stormtroopers can't hit anything. I'm sick and
Listen.
tired of it.
They didn't miss. Okay, let's say from a role-playing game perspective, those heroes just had a higher level. That's it.
Yeah, they had a really good luck skill. You know, they rolled 20s on all the shots.
Actually, I was reading some lore about the stormtroopers. Actually, they're quite accurate because we're trained as like sort of like Marines, and you know, Marines don't screw up pretty much. I mean, yeah, you can screw up if there's a good forces fighting against like type of Marines, but they usually don't screw up. That's what stormtroopers are pretty much.
Yeah, you know, when Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin say, "Hey, don't kill them. We need them to escape." You miss your shots. You know, you miss your shots. But yeah, I loved how not only in like the end of the show, but throughout the entire show, I mean, these troopers, they aren't missing. Like even some of them, like the lesser ones who are guarding the dam or something like that, they have their shots pinned. They have the rebels pinned down. They actually kill a couple of them in there, you know. And then at the end, when the prison break is happening, those guards aren't really like the best shots. I think that they're just like out of practice because nothing happens at that place, but they're still hitting people, you know. They're not stormtroopers, but they're hitting people. And then the end of the show, they have the stormtroopers open fire, and they're pretty much hitting every single shot that they shoot. You know, there's characters dropping left and right at that in that ending sequence. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say this right now: stop the stormtrooper slander. Okay, I know it's a meme, and I know that the people who just kind of watch Star Wars without any they just watch it because they like watching Star Wars or whatever. I don't know. They don't want to look into the lore. Stormtroopers are not inaccurate, okay? It was one fucking scene, okay? They were letting them escape. It's one scene. Watch any other Star Wars property, even the Return of the Jedi, which has a lot of bullshit happening with the Ewoks killing stormtroopers with stones and stuff. They're hitting the Ewoks. Like, the Ewoks are dropping left and right, okay? I'm just saying. Look at Empire Strikes Back with the freaking attack on Hoth. Like, the stormtroopers are, like, sniping the rebels in the trenches. Like, what do you... Come on. I don't know if this is just like a Mandela effect or something. Like, people just think, like, remember wrongly that stormtroopers don't hit shit. But, I mean, come on, you know?
I was about to mention Hoff, too. Yeah, after... Yeah, no, it's just like one time because they missed so badly. Like, choo, 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 choo. Oh, we can't get them. Why? I don't know. I just can't aim, I guess. I guess it's not my day. I don't know.
Oh, no. I certainly don't want to hit anything, right? Wink, wink.
I know what. Listen, I know why they all missed. Listen, I was present as Kenobi. I used a big force mind trick, and they're like, I can't aim anymore. That's correct. That's what happened.
Yeah. You used the force projection to make them think that Luke and them were in different locations.
Exactly. That's what happened.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I want to mention something in episode 2. I don't know if you mentioned the case Cassian blaster.
His blaster?
His blaster. You know, we carries a blaster.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool one.
Actually, you've probably seen that one before. Trust me. It's a K16 Briar pistol. So they've been introduced this in the Dark Force video game used by Kal Katarn.
Oh, hey, there we go. You know what? You're right. Now that I think about it, that is cool. And
I'm still pissed about it. about Star Wars, because they didn't bring back Kal Katarn to back to the canon time, but what they did kind of inspire Casey and Andor kind of from Kal Katarn. I'm like, okay, but you know, Kal Katarn is actually Chuck Norris in Star Wars, so bring him back, please.
Hey, he can do everything. He's a Jedi. He's a ruffian. He's a bounty hunter. Like, he can do everything.
Exactly, he's Chuck Norris.
Well, they are remastering Dark Forces, so it's possible that Kal Katarn becomes canon again in the future. Who knows? We'll see. They did re-release a lot of those old video games, but they never. Yeah, you're right. They've never like said like, "Yep, Kal Katarn, he's in the new universe." No, they just kind of forgot him back in the past.
Freaking bastards! Bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Disney is kind of throwing darts at a board with Star Wars, and maybe Kal Katarn is one of those spots on the dartboard that they haven't hit yet. You know, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's move on to episode. So we kind of got to episode 1 to 3. It was a good build-up.
And then you do the reboot where you meet a whole bunch of new characters, and they start plotting to take the money out of the damn base that's there.
Yeah, you have to say the characters that you met when actually Luthen kind of gets Cassian, and it's like he's starting his speech, and Cassian has like, okay, I just go with you, I guess, for now. And when he joins for the rebels, you meet all those sort of characters, and one of them was very like kind of a way more rebellious lad. That's where it gets political. It was from Namek. I don't know if you remember him. He was kind of this guy. So I don't know if you remember Namek. He was the guy who says about his manifesto, pretty much.
Yeah, he's the one who gets crushed by the money at the end of the heist, right?
No, he's the one that dies in the table from the doctor. Well, kind of. He gets hit.
He gets crushed by the money, and then he dies on the operating table. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's him. Yeah, and so what's funny is that they all use a lot of like similar stuff that we already know from Star Wars, like climb, like is the word we know from K2 Osu from Rogue One. Remember when there was like at the end he was pretty damaged and just like climb,
Yeah.
That was pretty much the same thing. That was the same reference, pretty much the reason. But his manifesto was pretty like something. When I was reading the breakdown from somebody, he was pretty much taking like this sort of like libertarian or Marxist. That's where it's getting more political. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
well, I think it goes to show, because there's different factions of these rebellious groups, right? You have the one group
Exactly.
led by the guy who's more machine than man by Rogue One. What's his name?
Saul Guerrero.
Yeah, Saul Guerrero. And then you also have Luthen, who's doing his thing. And there was the other guy we didn't really see the third faction who got completely wiped out in like one of the later episodes. But it kind of it goes to show, and also once again, great world building, where the rebellion starts off with a bunch of different ideas for how to solve the Empire problem, and the manifesto is one of those things that is brought up that not everyone in the group agreed with, to have this manifesto thing. But it just goes to show just how well they built this story. Like, okay, not every group of rebels has the same idea, like in A New Hope or even Rogue One, right? They're still kind of fractured and starting to join forces.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where Cassian actually was questioning Luthen, because he says, "What kind of rebel?" Because remember he mentioned like you have the Alliance, the Separatists, the guerrilla, the Partisan Front. Like which one? Like he was pretty much saying, "Where do I belong?"
Right.
That was the same case where we talking pretty much.
Yeah, and it's like those two episodes building up to the heist are just really good.
I have to say,
the character growth is great. Not the character growth, I should say, but like the setting up the different characters and their roles in the conflict. They did a great job with that.
Exactly.
And also
Yeah,
showing
it was-
where the security guy, where he ends up with his mom. I thought that was just such a great look into a character who's in terms of the entire show, he's pretty minor, all things considered, as like a character in the show. But you get a good amount of like just having his mom be there, and kind of you understand where he's coming from, why he's trying to be bigger than his britches. It all just makes sense, and it's a character like you see like a couple times. He really doesn't have any plot significance until like the very end and the beginning, of course. But it's nice to see that to understand the character more, no matter how much you don't like him.
Yeah, pretty much his background.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice place to go to. The overbearing mom who is trying to lead, direct his life and all that. And of course he goes along with it because he's getting a room and breakfast. But by the end of his time with his mom, he just kind of wants out, and he even lies that he's got a promotion so he can go and stalk the ISB agent.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice to see that happen. It's nice to see that they care about some of these minor characters enough to really flesh them out.
And it was also kind of good. Remember, especially like when he was trying to stalk the Imperial Security Bureau agent, Dedra, and when he was doing his talk, the way how he said it, like he said like it's type of like I love you, but more of a job sense. I love you.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if you get that feel.
It was still kind of creepy, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I was like,
you could tell that he overthought the situation a lot. Like she put in a good word to have his record cleared, and he thought that was, as a lot of men do with women when they do something nice for them. He thought that, oh, it's an expression of love. She loves me or whatever. Like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get together because she sponged my record. Like, and it's funny because she's even like, she doesn't even recognize him at first, when he starts talking to her, because he's such a, to her it was like another passing by kind of useless person.
A patsy. It was just like a patsy.
Right. So I think that it is a little bit creepy, but I think the story fits in the context of Andor here.
Yeah, because she was pretty much she was like somebody, he was nobody, and then when she got like, oh, she's in my case, she must have something for me, like you know, like.
I think that because I was kind of expecting them to team up after the interrogation section, not really interrogation, but they just the questioning. And I think that would have been the wrong way to go with the show. Even though they were showing this side character so much, I think it would have been the wrong way to go to have him like team up with the ISB agent and Deirdre and start doing stuff with it. I think I like the way that they went with this. It is a bit of a subversion of expectations because you do expect them to team up for whatever reason because they both want to get Andor, but because he's just a security guy,
Exactly.
They leave him behind because in the grand scheme of things, Deirdre knows he's not going to be that helpful, and and just as a thing of good faith, she clears his record for him.
Actually, he's kind of a good example for most guys. Not gonna lie. For most guys, when they're working somewhere and you found a beautiful woman and she has a higher rank than you, just saying, just pointing out the obvious, being just me, or maybe just me, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean there are a lot of,
exactly.
There's a lot of that going around.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good example for a lot of guys who are in that type of situation.
Right, and kind of like with Deirdre, when it's not wanted, that's when it becomes a problem, and that's why she turns him away. And I think that's a good example to men who are maybe overstepping or maybe getting the wrong message from a superior or even just a woman in general, is if it's not coming off the right way and they don't want that, then you do have to respect their boundaries, and he does keep following her throughout the rest of the show, which is a bad example for the men of the world. In the end, he does save her, but it's still a very awkward scene when she's like, well, I guess I should thank you, because I think she even is like, I don't want to be around this guy. He did just save my life, at least. We'll see what happens in season 2. I don't think that anything's going to come of their relationship. Maybe they will actually team up in season 2, which would make more sense after he saved her. But for season 1, I think this is a nice arc for the two characters because it's very much based in reality, even though it's in the Star Wars universe.
Well, I don't know. I feel like she's gonna be more cold to him, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the writers decide to do.
Yeah.
They've subverted our expectations before. They'll probably do it again.
Yeah. So we actually also see Lufin's shop, which has a lot of those amazing relics.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many Easter eggs. I was like, what the hell? So we kind of see the Amidala style headpiece. We see the Mandalorian armor. We see the Jedi Temple guard mask. We see some Garo stones, which I don't remember where. Wait. Oh, some Garo stones. Never mind. Those from Indiana Jones. Oh shit! Look at that.
They are another Lucasfilm property.
Yeah. They also and. Yeah, exactly. There was a big self-holocron with the Jedi around. You even see a Starkiller's Dark Lord helmet, which was like, I was amazed by that, actually.
Yeah, I liked how there was a bunch of things frozen in carbonite, too. Like, the little slabs of carbonite, like...
Yeah, you had a Wookiee helmet, a Gungan shield. You had a war between war tablets. You have to watch Rebels for that. And that's right, carbonite blocks, which is kind of funny. I was like, what the hell? This guy is a collector.
Yeah. Put him in the Marvel universe. He collects more things than the collector.
Yeah, exactly. I swear to God, I was amazed by the stuff they put in there with the Easter eggs, and it's kind of a good thing, which means that they kind of did not forget completely. Uh, uh, do not forget to complete the Star Wars lore. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Now, yeah, and this is kind of where Mon Mothma starts becoming more of a character in the show, where she is the one funding Luthen and his exploits with, that team of rebels. That kind of starts the more political angle of the show, where Mon Mothma is trying to, show a different face than what she's actually doing, even though she's still trying to fight for, the rights of the people of the galaxy to not be oppressed by the Empire and not have the Empire overreach their bounds. I think that it's actually very fitting for the other senators to kind of be like, boo, boo, and they like shut down their pods and walk away as she's giving speeches. Because that really, I mean, just thinking in the context of what happens in the future of the Star Wars universe, that really, that would be the reason why, she realizes that, the political side of things isn't working. So it's time to go a bit more extreme. And that's why she becomes a leader of the rebellion. I think that they're setting that up really well. We'll see if in season 2 it starts to unfold a bit more.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, yeah, pretty much when the light turns off, it just means I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right.
And that happened often. That happened often in Star Wars. I was like, wow.
And you can definitely tell she's starting to break by the end of the episodes, especially when she has to essentially give her daughter's hand to
a Tug.
Yeah.
Skando.
And
he was a Tug. His name. Yeah.
She definitely didn't want to do that, but it's funny because I think the daughter has essentially been brainwashed by not only her father but like the teachings of the Empire, essentially. So she actually wants to fulfill that obligation as a senator's daughter, right? So it's I think that's going to be an interesting area that they'll maybe explore in the next season. We'll see what happens with Mon Mothma's family. I really do think that could be even more interesting as they continue on. But I think the pieces that they laid out for Mon Mothma, very interesting, very, very well done.
Well, she had no choice. She needed money, and she asked from this banker,
The richest thug. She got
Yeah, and he says you should say pretty much I have a guy, and it's like he's a Tug. It's like, well, what do you want to do? I have nothing best for you because they're watching you, and we can see that from the drivers. Remember, she always said cautious because of the drivers.
Yeah, I think that's a really fun thing towards the end when she talks to her husband about gambling. And the driver goes to the ISB agent, and he's like, "Oh, well, that the missing money is from her husband gambling again." I thought that was really clever, really smart.
Yeah. I was about to mention that too, and it was very smart. It's like they did a ruse talk, so the driver would just be like confused, or because like he has to write something in the report, I guess, and a report will be talk about gambling. That's what they're gonna say.
That's it. Let's pause for a second to wish Squid Daddy a happy birthday. I hope that you had a nice birthday.
Happy birthday, Squid Daddy.
Did you do anything fun? Did you get anything good? I'm sure, yeah. I in the Discord, I just kind of jokingly gave Squid Daddy a happy birthday because, that's our repertoire. I think it's funny that no one else wished him a happy birthday in the Discord after that happened. Everyone was just like, oh, it's Squid Daddy being a fucking asshole again. But no, it's actually his birthday.
I actually thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke because you put 80s. I'm like, what the hell?
Well, I got in trouble a little bit ago when Squid Daddy joked that I was like 40 years old. Someone thought that the age gap between me and my fiance was too big, and I was like, no, I'm at the time I was like 29, and she's like 25 or 26. It's like It was a little bit
Wow.
awkward, but so
I
yeah,
see, I see.
so I pretty much I've just been doubling his age since then. So now he's 80 years old now. Old man.
Okay. So you give him the squid age, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. In squid years, he's 80.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. So episode 4, 5, it was pretty well planned. Also, how they planned the attack and everything. Different type of characters with different emotions, of course. And then we end up in where he has to hide again from the Empire. And it was funny how he got caught, right? When he
Yeah.
was at that beach, Naminos, yeah.
Yeah, he's just
And,
having a good time on the beach world, and I mean, all he was doing was walking to like the grocery store or whatever it was in the universe, and yeah, because he's sweaty and because it looks like he was a bit disheveled and whatever, they slapped him with a whole bunch of different things that eventually got him 6 years in prison.
Yeah, that was kind of. I was like, wow, that's what you call bad luck.
Yeah, and
And it was funny. The short trooper just like come ask you, and then you see there's like a KX unit comes by,
Mhm.
and it's like, I was like, can you hand over it? And it just grabs him by the throat. They're like, do you have like anything to say? Like, you know. I was like, no, just put me put me down, like, bro. I was like, I can't breathe or something, and it just like, all right, citizen, you better come with me now. It's like, I'm like, bro, are you doing like RoboCop style or something?
And yeah, I mean, also the beach world has those sand troopers as well. You don't see too many of them in the Star Wars universe. Short troopers. You pretty much see them in Rogue One and now Andor.
Yeah.
They aren't around too much. I like the design of the short troopers. I think that there's like when you look at stormtrooper outfits for the various different places that they inhabit, like, you got the snow troopers, and you got the regular troopers, and you got troopers with the camouflage on, even though when they were on Endor they didn't have any camouflage, but that's besides the point. I think the shore troopers is is a good design that Disney came up with for like the beach, like the tropical climates that they would inhabit. The armor looks light. They got like the extra shaded there's an extra shaded goggle layer to them. The helmets themselves, the whole thing just screams, this is a trooper outfit for tropical climates, and I really like the design of them.
Actually, yeah, I saw a video. It was talking about the mud troopers, and we see those only in Mimban in the Solo movie, pretty much.
Oh yeah, you're right. The mud men going around.
Yeah, and those are pretty rare too. I was like, wow, what a nice design. I mean, they have like this World War I look, pretty much. Somebody mentioned. I was like, wow, yeah, it's true.
Well,
Yeah.
you also see the Death Troopers in Andor as well. They show up later in
Yep.
and they
do.
I think it was a good idea for them to show the Death Troopers with the ISB agents, because you really don't see Death Troopers outside of the officers with the white uniforms like in Rogue One, because in Rogue One they didn't really touch on the main lieutenant there's background. Why was he there? It's because he was with the ISB. You don't really get that across in that movie, whereas in Andor it's like, okay, it's the ISB, they have the special Death Troopers with them, and I like that they hammered that home, like, hey, these are the Death Troopers are for the ISB. This is the lore.
Pretty much, yeah. Before I forget, I want to mention two things.
Mm-hmm.
So, remember when Namek was telling his like sleeping, like his sleeping problem, whatever.
Yeah.
To Cassian, like he cannot sleep because of conscience. So I read recently, that it's kind of like a war story in Saving Private Ryan about sleeping consciousness. Remember when they're all in bed and talking, like this guy, the sniper was sleeping, and the others just like woke up and talking.
Yeah, because the sniper had a clean conscience.
Exactly. It was the kind of a reference to that. I don't even know. I was like, what the? I'm like, that's true.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, mind blown. And another thing, we do see a guy, Wolf Yularen. I don't know if you know him. Wolf Yularen.
I would have to see a picture of his character, but it doesn't sound. It doesn't. I don't recognize the name.
We do see him Clone Wars TV show, but the first shot we got him is actually in A New Hope with the table when near Tarkin. That's when Darth Vader comes in, and there's a shot of a old man with like a white mustache or something, with the white uniform, with the ASB uniform, pretty much. That's him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they introduced him in New Hope, and then they, I guess, develop him in the novels. And in here in Andor, we actually see him more, which was quite nice. I have to say, they brought the character back from the lore, pretty much.
Yeah, it's cool when they do stuff like that. It's kind of like more of a background thing, where it's like they're not pointing to it and going, "Look, it's this guy from here." Like they didn't.
Yeah.
Like I complain about this all the time in Rogue One, where it's like, "Oh, it's the two guys from the cantina. Oh, it's it's C-3PO and R2-D2. Why are they there? It doesn't make any sense." And like the first like half of Rogue One is essentially just like, "Oh, look, it's that character."
Exactly.
I like it when it's more subtle like this.
Exactly. And one thing that he's been mentioning around is that the whole thing, it was the PORD. It's the Public Order Resistance Direction, pretty much. I don't know if you know what that means.
Yeah. No.
It's kind of a parallel to the passage to Patriot Act, like after 9/11. Privacy and civil liberties, etc. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where the Empire was going. Because you see like explosions, so you have to do something about it.
Right.
I mean, listen, there's some stuff going on, some rebels, you have to enforce the law. That's what happened, pretty much.
Yeah, well, that was Luthen's whole idea was, tighten the grip of the Empire and more rebels will start to spring up because of the unjustness or unfairness of the rules that were being set in place.
Yeah, actually, that's where Luthen really captures my attention, is when he gets the spy who works in his B, Lunan? I can't think of it.
Was it Lonnie?
I think so, man.
Yeah, I think it's Lonnie. He's like the red.
Lonnie.
Haired.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly him. Because they got a guy from NASB, which tells them the whole everything, pretty much. He's a spy for the rebel, for Luthen, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when he tells them like the whole speech that they use the tools that be given to use against the enemies, and he says what he sacrificed, pretty much everything. That was such a badass speech, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was a powerful moment in the show.
Yeah, it was powerful
because up until that point, us as the audience really don't see him sacrificing much for the cause, other than maybe his comfort when he's flying around. It's good to have that in your mind when he's doing the stuff that he does now, and the whole reasoning behind like letting the third group of rebels get decimated is like, you don't really agree with it, but the logic is sound, and obviously, if they did stop the attack, or if they added reinforcements to it or whatever, the Empire would have been more suspicious of that, and the reasoning is highly sound, and the ISB agent inside there is as Luthen said, is more is a higher priority than 50 men or whatever it was, and that's just like a very powerful moment when he goes to the other group who has like air support, and he's like, "No, change of plans and don't go."
Yeah, that's what. Well, actually, they said don't go, but they still, when he met Saul Guerrero, he still thought that they should capture Kraygor, that was his name, Anton Kraygor. That still should capture him because that was later trapped because so they could not find the spy inside the ISB, you know.
Right.
That was Liffen all planned, you know, because otherwise, what's gonna happen? You know, you don't know what's gonna happen inside ISB, you know.
Yeah.
And I hope in season 2 we get more details if he's gonna get captured or not. You know, you never know.
And I guess to kind of wrap this up, the final episode was very intense. I guess like the final like couple episodes where they're building up to the funeral. I just love the atmosphere that they put on for Ferrix and like the, you know, the kind of like how in like episode 6 there was the people who came to watch the, you know, the asteroids or whatever it was falling out of the sky, which was an amazing segment in that. This kind of has the same vibe where it's like, once again, not really the rebels, but like, you know, Andor and his group are using the cover of this funeral to get, you know, kind of go around, save Biggs, yeah, Biggs, which I thought was a nice conclusion as well, like having his quote unquote mom give that speech about, you know, being a rebel and whatnot. I thought that was very powerful. And then, you know, the town kind of erupts and it goes from there. And I just really liked just how thick the atmosphere was. How it was almost like the buildup was kind of like making me anxious a little bit too, like building up to the big finale there. Just a really great sequence. And that's another thing. Like, you can split this show up into 4 segments, like I said, and each segment has, you know, a bit of a buildup, and then the main action or the main thing that was building up to, and it was always such a good payoff, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I want to talk about Biggs for a little bit because I think she gets kind of the worst a little bit, but the torture she gets, the auditory torture, remember they put her in those head speakers.
Yeah.
And the way how he explained it just was horrifying, because he was he was saying like choral, pleading, agonizing. It was like, I don't know, babies that cry or something. You know?
Yeah, it was pretty much like an alien species, like being practically wiped out by the Empire, right? And they had the recordings of the voices, and some of them were kids, some of them were children, you know, some of them were like adults as well. Then they combined it all and obviously did some different things to it. I liked the background on it because it was super quick, and because the doctor's just like, yeah, the guys who listened to this went crazy, huddled into a corner, so we're using that for torture now. Like, it's to the point. Yeah. You understand, especially after seeing the father of the one kid in Ferrix, you know, the aftermath of him listening to it, and so exactly. and the other thing too is the acting from Adria Arjona during that sequence. Fantastic. Yeah. Really sells it, because you can't hear what's going on. But... No,
because they switched to the machine parts in the prison where they build those parts.
Right.
And that was like beautifully done for that. It's like we cannot hear what's inside because we're looking at this from an outside perspective.
And her performance really sells that what she is listening to is worse than anything she's ever heard before in her life.
Yeah. Also, I want to say the prison by Andy Serkis, who's playing by Kino Loy. He did an amazing job of it there. I really love his character to the end. Like, he was very loyal, and then he just like, okay, the system is broken. Casey, what's your plan? You know, like. Yeah.
Well, that whole prison sequence was just fantastic. Like, there was, like, the build up to the prison breakout was immaculate, and like everything inside the prison with the world building and the lore and just kind of how everything was being done was great. And the reveal of, people getting done with their sentence time, the 200 and, this 217, days getting kind of thrown back into the cogs was such a great twist too, because
it was a great. Actually, the biggest twist for me is when they were free and Kino said, "I cannot swim." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, hopefully we see him in the next season, because that would be great. Because he was. I mean, Andy Serkis did a great job with the character.
Yeah. There's a funny moment where somebody mentioned when I was watching a breakdown, when they put Olaf when he passed away, the old guy. He was like he had like 74 days left or something. You know. Also, the number tags, the number showing how many days, but the counting has shifts. But anyway, so when he passed away, the zipperback, when they push and run, like, imagine if there was kind of like they kind of decompose them and you eating the food, sort of like in that you did a Film Freak movie, Soylent Green. Soylent Green. Yeah. Imagine how screwed up that will be.
Yeah, that would have been that probably would have been a bit too far for Star Wars, but I mean,
you never know.
You never
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I want to mention before we wrap it up is the music intro when the each episode begins. I don't know if you noticed how it changes the tune.
I did notice it was changing.
Yeah, it was changing a lot for some time. A lot of moments will go darker for each episode, and some moments where it gets lighter, like it gets like sort of easy going, if you know, like a harmonic way or something.
Yeah. Well, that last episode, like I was noticing the change, but the last episodes was just so bombastic and loud. I was like, okay, it definitely was changing. I did notice that.
Yeah. And and another thing I want to mention is that each title of the episode has a meaning inside the episode. Mm-hmm. Like the title, like, for example, like nobody's listening. When he says exactly nobody was listening, because some people were trying to do and nobody was listening. It's the same like Biggs get tortured. Kaysen was trying to tell something. In the ASB, Deadpool was trying to tell something to user command, and nobody was listening. Mm-hmm. It's just to give you an example. Yeah, it was brilliant done. The whole. Actually, I found out how many prisoners were there. So apparently, the math is. So what they said was there's 100 prisoners per room. So there are 7 rooms per level. So you get 4,900, but since there's been 100 less from what we know from the surge, so there are 4,800 prisoners so far that have been in the facility.
Yeah, to 16 security officers on each floor.
Yeah, that won't help. I mean, that didn't help him at the end.
Yeah, that whole sequence in the prison, like I said before, that I was on the edge of my seat during that whole thing. I thought it was just it was well choreographed. The music was great. The story was really flowing. And that the ending shot where they're zooming out from the prison and they show like the 3 doors that were opened and the prisoners swimming out was really good. And you know in your heart that a lot of those guys didn't make it. Like I would say 90% of those guys didn't make it, or they were picked up by the Imperials and didn't make it off the planet. But
no, actually, those guards were pretty nervous. But they were the only way why they weren't exactly nervous is based on the way how the prison system was working, pretty much.
Yeah. So
as when you have like a good systematic system, good systematic protocol, it works fine. But if something gets break down or something, and
hey, it was the security who messed up at the end of the day because they put the wrong guy on the wrong floor after he was supposed to leave. So,
well, you always can do a mistake somewhere.
The theme of complacency came back around several times. And this was one of another time that it came around was they were so used to doing their job, they weren't thinking, they sent the guy to the wrong floor. Kind of the same thing, we backtrack a little bit with Deirdre. There was a little bit of complacency with the other, ISB agency who didn't want to give her information and whatever, so she had to kind of kick them into high gear and go all the way back to the first episode where the security was being complacent and they wanted this death of security guards. They wanted to just kind of be like, forget about it, write up a report, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a theme of like complacency causing an issue throughout the entire show as well, which
well, it's kind of the same way here. Remember, like it's the same way in our real world. You remember if you like some cops don't want to do this because it's too much paperwork. It's kind of the same thing, let's say.
Yeah, they're definitely grabbing from real world stuff there for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially with the security officers who didn't want to deal with the paperwork. You're right.
And what we found out at the end with the credit scenes, all those droids tinkering parts that we see from the prison are building for the Death Star.
Yeah, it was on the back of my mind while I was watching it. I didn't know for sure, but I was like, it's definitely like something building. Yeah, they're building the Death Star. Like, come on.
Yeah, it was building the Death Star. I was like, bro, there's no way. I was like thinking, what's those pieces? Death Star? Like something has to be big. It can't be that small, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's gonna wrap up the Andor talk. Kenobi, I appreciate you coming on and talking.
Thank you for having me.
We will definitely have to talk about season 2 when that comes out. We will definitely get back and say, let's talk about season 2.
Well, there has been it has to wait till 2025 to push the season for next year.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you'll probably come back between then and now, I'm sure, for other things. But I just meant we gotta have when season 2 does come out, we'll reconvene and talk about season 2 and hopefully it's the same quality, maybe better, for season 2.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
When you start off this good though, it's hard to imagine them doing better because honestly, I would probably give Andor season 1 like a 4.5 out of 5. Like that, and it's close to it being perfect.
Yeah, one thing I like is that they put a lot of reference from different Star Wars movies and TV shows, pretty much. So then they pretty much show that it's exactly Star Wars how you want it to be.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Star Wars doesn't always have to be Jedi, bounty hunters, etc. And Andor shows that, where it's like, hey, we can have interesting things in the Star Wars universe. And it doesn't have to be centered around the plot of, a Jedi or a bounty hunter or whatever, right? It can be centered around just a guy.
Actually, that was a good TV show because I was looking forward for like Mothma around the political stuff, and they showed that. So I was like, that's very good. That's way much better than was expected.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Like, well, I give George Lucas a lot of credit for what he did with Star Wars, obviously, but having the prequels be so close in terms of years to the original trilogy is a detriment to the Empire in a lot of ways, because it's like, oh, what? There's only like a 20-year span where they had an iron fist on the galaxy and then they collapsed. Like, come on. I feel like if he had just maybe not linked them so closely, we could get more stuff like this where it's like, okay, what's happening in those years where the Empire does have the Iron Fist, the rebellion's not like there yet, it's just still forming. And I think it's a very interesting time period for the Star Wars universe. You don't see a lot of stuff being made during this time period, but it's tough for me to envision more than like 2 seasons of Andor, because with Andor season 1 being like only 5 years before Rogue One, it's hard to believe that they will shove too much more story between the two. Maybe 3 seasons.
Yeah, I actually want to see the a TV show about pilots.
Yeah, you kind of get that in like the Clone Wars, though, right? You get the pirates.
No, pilots.
Oh, pilot. Yeah, I mean, well, I think we talked about it last time. A Rogue Squadron
Yeah, Rogue
series would be
Squadron.
perfect.
Or maybe, or even by the Thai Imperial pilots. I mean,
Yeah, they could have a dueling story. I think that one of the areas of Star Wars that does need to be covered more is that post Return of the Jedi, and Rogue Squadron would be a perfect place for that because you have the fractured Imperial forces. You have
exactly.
people from all, not just people, but different aliens from all walks of life in Rogue Squadron, and they could even bring back Wedge Antilles if they really wanted to. But that's a discussion, I guess, for another time at this point.
Well, you can watch the animated TV show of Star Wars Rebels.
That's true.
Just saying.
That's true.
Just saying.
Yeah, I'm
All
working
right.
my way through like Bad Batch right now, and I just started season 2 of Loki, so it might be a little bit before I get around to that.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. May the force be with you.
Oh, and also with you. May the Schwartz be with you.
Oh no, not yogurt.
All right, thank you again, Kenobi. You have a good night.
All right, you too, buddy.
All right, y'all. That was Kenobi. Thank you for talking Andor. I knew that this was gonna go over time because Kenobi and I are both very passionate Star Wars fans, obviously. And Andor, with Andor being so good, I knew we were gonna have a lot to talk about, a lot to gush about. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff that's come out, whether recently or since Disney took over, that's just kind of been mediocre or bad. And having the ray of light that is Andor does make me feel good. So I knew I was gonna have a bit more time to talk about. So we probably won't get to sci-fi movies, but I do want to talk about Star Fox because the story of Star Fox is quite interesting. But before we get to that, how is everyone in the chat doing? We got Greedy Waffles. We got Just Gallus. We got Squid Daddy, who's probably asleep or something. Who knows? But I hope everyone's doing good. If you're lurking, I appreciate that too. I do. I, of course, appreciate anyone lurking or chatting, of course. You don't have to say anything if you want to lurk. If you want to lurk, that's fine, Lurking also helps the channel. But if you do want to talk, I usually try to read the chat while we're doing things. But when I have a guest on, it is a bit more difficult to read the chat and talk to them. So, don't take offense if I don't immediately, question, read a comment. If it's related to the topic, I probably will work it in somehow. But, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. Let me take a drink of water before we get to the final segment here. Because unlike last week, the sci-fi movies thing was kind of shoehorned for my notes. In terms of transparency for the podcast, this week I did not have a lot of time to actually prepare for this one because work was so busy. All my time that I would usually dedicate to planning the episode was filled with work, and by the time I got home, I was just too tired to really think about what we wanted to do. But after we played Star Fox 64, and that's obviously a very good game, I wanted to look into the history of Star Fox, where it came from, and where it might go. And I thought that would be an interesting topic because Star Fox is one of those Nintendo properties that it's kind of like Pikmin and Metroid in a way, where it's a popular franchise, but Nintendo a lot of times either ignores it or just kind of, supports it every so often. We were lucky enough to get a new Pikmin game last year. And we do have a new Metroid game coming, and we did get Metroid Dread 2 years ago. So people who are fans of Nintendo and fans of these series have been eaten well, unless you're a fan of F-Zero or Star Fox. you're not eaten too well with these franchises. So Star Fox, obviously, if you don't know, it's an on-rails shooter essentially. Later iterations had on-foot segments, as well as all-range mode segments where you had kind of have an area to cover, to traverse while you're fighting. Anthropomorphic characters like Fox McCloud, Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, Falco Lombardi, and later on Crystal, and of course Cat, who is a kind of like a secret character, I would say, in Star Fox 64. Honestly, if you didn't play, if you're not good at the game, then you never saw Cat, which is unfortunate. So the inspiration behind Star Fox I thought was very interesting. There's a couple things that Miyamoto points to, because Shigeru Miyamoto did work on this. It was one of his babies. Essentially, it was inspired by not only the show Thunderbirds, where he actually wanted to do like a show where they kind of where Thunderbirds and Star Fox teamed up, which never got made, of course. But also, specifically, Fox McCloud was inspired by Okami, the Fox deity Okami. And Miyamoto frequently went to the various shrines of Okami. And part of the gameplay mechanics where you fly through rings or arches is based on the number of arches you have to walk through in order to get to the shrine. So that's kind of like the main basis there is Thunderbirds mixed with the Fox deity Okami and just Miyamoto walking through temples and stuff like that. So essentially Miyamoto came up with the idea. As Cal says in the chat, a different team worked on the original game. Actually, a different team kind of worked on every single game except for the original game and Star Fox 64. So the first game was kind of more of a tech demo, right? It was to show off their new Super FX graphics chip that could render 3D graphics super fast. And on the latest episode of Fair 64, as at the time that I'm recording this, I did misspeak. So I apologize about that. But anyway, the game came out on the Super NES with that enhanced render graphics chip, which increased processing power, processing speed, which allowed the game to have really nice, I guess not really nice, but good 3D graphic modeling. It also, I think there was also something with the sound as well. In Europe, the game could not be called Star Fox because it was too closely related to the German company Star Vox. Okay, so they had to call the original Star Fox game Star Wing in Europe, and of course Star Fox 64 was also renamed, and then after that they didn't have to do that. But for the first two games, well, I guess technically the first two games, Star Fox had to be renamed in Europe, which, I mean, honestly, Starwing is not a bad name for a game. I know Star Fox rolls off the tongue better, but Starwing's not that bad. And then later on, Lilat Wars, I don't think that's a good name because what's a Lilat? Right? If you don't know what Star Fox is, you have no clue what Lilat is. So Lilat Wars for Star Fox 64, not that great of an idea. But Star Wing for Star Fox 1, whatever. Not too bad, honestly. The game released in 1993. It was, but like I said, it was essentially a proof of concept. It was a tech demo. It was relatively short compared to the other Star Fox games, which are also pretty short. But they wanted to do more, obviously, with the concept. Like this was a proof of concept. This was a game that's like, okay, this is what it can do. Let's build on top of this. Because the game was successful. It had moderate success, which means, hey, they're gonna greenlight a sequel. So here comes Star Fox 2, which got all the way through the development process, about 99% of the way through, and then was canceled, even though it was practically finished. So technically, Star Fox 2 was lost to time for quite some time until it eventually showed up on Nintendo's online service. And this is another thing that I got it wrong on Fair 64. I assumed that the game was released in Japan. I was wrong about that. I apologize for spreading misinformation. So the reason why the game was canceled was because the Nintendo 64 was coming out, and they wanted to use Star Fox for the 64 game. So what they did is they took a lot of the ideas that they had for Star Fox 2, like multiple characters, multiplayer, a new tank, I guess. Also, like Star Wolf, all range mode, and charge shots were going to be implemented in Star Fox 2. Those all made an appearance in Star Fox 64. Later on, the Walker tank, the bipedal R-Wing, would show up in Star Fox 0, but we'll talk about that later. Now, Miyamoto loved Star Fox, but he also admits that once production was done on 64, after that, he didn't like the idea of giving the IP to various studios, and we'll go through why that is in a little bit. So Star Fox 64 comes out in 1997 for the N64, called Lilat Wars in Europe. The game was launched and had packaged in the Rumble Pack. It was bundled in with the game, and it utilized the Rumble Pack for the N64 controller. Kind of like with DK64 having the expansion pack for that, Star Fox 64 was the first game to utilize the Rumble Pack on the N64, or Nintendo in general, honestly. So that is the reason why. That is one of the other reasons why that they decided to scrap Star Fox 2, is because they needed something to attach this Rumble Pack to. And hey, Star Fox is right there. Let's do that. This is the first game in the series to have voice acting for the characters. As minimal as it is, it's still pretty exciting. It also was the first game to include new vehicles like the tank and the submarine. Of course, when you play the multiplayer, obviously a big thing for the N64 was the multiplayer. So you had 4-player multiplayer and all that good stuff. Eventually, the game was remade on the 3DS in 2011. I don't know if I actually wrote down anything about that was interesting. Yeah, there really wasn't anything interesting about the 3DS remake other than it was a remake of the game on 3DS, so, you know. Callus says they also saw how PS1 games looked and didn't think it would do good at that point. The Star Fox 1, if you play it on the Nintendo Online service or on its original form, it is a bit rough. It is a bit rough. It's very polygonal. Once again, though, it is a tech demo at its core, so I don't think they put a lot of stock into the visuals. They just wanted to show, like, hey, look at all these advanced shapes that we can do. And what's better to show off shapes than triangles? After that is where Star Fox started to get a bit rocky in its history. And even though I like the game in general, Star Fox Adventures was the start of that downfall that I pointed to with Miyamoto's comments about handing off the game to different developers. It kind of took the IP in the wrong direction. In 2002, before 2002, Rare was making a game called like Dinosaur Planet. It was originally going to be an N64 game, but the GameCube was coming around, and Nintendo thought that they needed a killer app, and that killer app was going to be a Star Fox game. So what they did is they called up Rare, or they talked to Rare, and said, hey, this is going to be a Star Fox game. Now, there are some sections where you pilot the R-Wing, but the majority of the game it takes place on the surface of the planet. It kind of has a Legend of Zelda style to it, kind of like Ocarina of Time or something like that, where you switch out. It's like a third-person action game. You switch out stuff to do various things in the game. And the Dinosaur Planet original game heavily skinned over, essentially. The villains and stuff kind of remained the same with the dinosaurs, but there was a lot of main characters like Fox who had reskins done to them. Also, Crystal, she was a reskin character as well. This game, Star Fox Adventures, takes place 8 years after the events of Star Fox 64, and also takes place after the manga that was made for the series. That was called... Uh-oh, where are my notes? Where is that in my notes? I didn't have another page, did I? No. There was a manga made that was based around Falco, I'm pretty sure. Where the heck is that in my notes? It should be under spin-offs. Oh, here it is. Farewell, Beloved Falco was the name of the manga. It only released in Japan. Obviously, there's fan translations. That is set between 64 and Adventures. It actually leads into Adventures because it kind of tells the story of why Falco wasn't in that game. And essentially, at the end of the manga, it has the general telling Star Fox to go look at this planet, and essentially the end of the manga is them reaching the planet that Star Fox Adventures takes place on. So there you go. I found it. It worked out. All right. After that, we got Star Fox Assault, also for the GameCube, and they went back to the formula that kind of worked for Star Fox 64, where it's a lot of space combat, but not enough space combat. This game released in 2005. It was developed by Namco, and essentially there's just way too many on-foot sections. They took that idea from the multiplayer from Star Fox 64, and they just really threw in a lot of these on-foot sections where you're Fox and you're on the ground killing enemies. They introduced like a new villain for a new faction for this game, and it was set about 1 year after Star Fox's Adventures, even though it came out a couple years after the game came out. And we played the game on the channel. I thought it was fine, obviously, but the on-foot sections really weighed down the game, because when you're playing Star Fox, you don't just want to fire a gun on the wing of a R-Wing. You don't just want to run around on foot and shoot things. It's a fun concept for a couple of levels, but when you make the game a majority of on-foot sections, it really starts to hamper the game, because the annoying thing is that the R-Wing sections, the tank section in the game, were good, but there was just so many on-foot sections. The entire multiplayer was based around the on-foot stuff. It just really overstayed its welcome, in my opinion, at least. And that's why, Star Fox Assault, even though it's still a good game, it's not one that I want to go back to, simply because it just wasn't it. The combat was, the on-foot stuff was just not it. This was also the time where they finally confirmed the gender of Slippy. I know what you're saying. Oh, he's male. What are you talking about? Well, actually, he's had a couple of voice changes throughout his lifetime as a character. Originally was voiced by a female voice actress, then it changed to a male voice actor. But finally, in Star Fox Assault, it was confirmed that Slippy is a male. So you can cross that one off of your bucket list or whatever. All right. After this, Star Fox Command came out, which is a 3DS game. This came out in 2006, so before Star Fox 64, the remake of Star Fox 64. This was, I'm sorry, not 3DS, just a regular DS game. It was a regular DS game. This one was developed by Q Games. It was the first DS game for Star Fox, of course, but it was mostly a multiplayer game. All you did was fly around the R-Wing. There was no voice acting, and each character in the game kind of had like a unique ship for each character. So Slippy and Peppy and all that had unique ships that you could play around with. Fox used the R-Wing 2, which was a better version of the R-Wing. This is set 2 or 3 years after Star Fox Assault, even though there's really no story relevance in this game. So essentially what the game was a bunch of open areas with different flight paths. You would hunt down other players, or maybe even enemy AI at times, and you would get through the levels like that. There were 9 possible endings at the end of it all, though, so the different flight paths actually came into to factor into the game. But it was mostly a multiplayer online shooter, essentially, flying around the R-wings. But there was some stuff in there. Nine endings is nothing to scoff at, I would say. But the majority of the marketing for the game was, hey, this is a DS game that you can play with your friends, and yeah, it didn't perform too well, if I remember correctly. And this will lead us into the worst performing. Well, actually, I take that back. It's not the worst performing Star Fox game, but it's probably the worst Star Fox game in general, which was Star Fox Zero. And this one was developed by Platinum Games for the Wii U. Came out in 2016. And this is the first game for consoles in 10 years for the series. So there was 2 DS games, but nothing else since 2005 on the GameCube. So essentially, a lot of there's a couple Star Fox games we talked about. Like the one has the FX chip, the other one had the Rumble Pack, the one was like a Legend of Zelda thing. The main gimmick for Star Fox Zero was the gyro aiming, the gyro controls for the game. Essentially, I believe it was Miyamoto who was paving the way for this. But essentially, you would use the Wii U gamepad for gyro functionality. You can switch the gamepad with the TV, so it wasn't 100% gyro all the time. But that's the way that they wanted you to control the game, is they wanted you to use the gyro aiming to shoot ships on your screen. Star Fox Zero starts off good enough with a Battle of Corneria, which is usual for the series, but it quickly loses track of it just kind of gets off track really quickly. One of my least favorite things about the game, personally, was the vehicle sections. I believe there was like a hovercraft or something at one point. There was the bipedal walker that was originally from Star Fox 2. It just all didn't really work that great. There was also like a little robot guy that you would control at times. It was just kind of like really bad. And it's funny because Star Fox Zero got mostly negative reviews to average reviews. But the game that came bundled with it, which was another kind of like Star Fox Adventures, was just a reskin. Star Fox Guard was a tower defense game that had like the Star Fox skin over it. It actually got better reviews than Star Fox Zero. It actually got mostly positive reviews, which is kind of crazy to think about, that they bundled in-game for Star Fox Zero that was kind of like half a game. Essentially was better received and reviewed than the base game itself. A couple characters came back for this game. A couple other ones were forgotten. But for the most part, Star Fox Zero is kind of the nail in the coffin for the series at this point, even though we've seen Star Fox in a couple of things after this. Star Fox Zero has been the last hurrah. Star Fox Zero is also still one of the only Nintendo first-party games to not be ported over from the Wii U to the Switch. There's been plenty of games. There are still a couple of games, of course, that are stuck on the Wii U from Nintendo. But Star Fox Zero is like one of the last big games that came out that was never ported to the Switch, which is unfortunate because a lot of times when they do port the games from the Wii U to the Switch, they get improvements. And I feel like if they did bring Star Fox Zero over to the Switch, they would have removed the gyro controls completely, which might have been a better option. Maybe would have given the game new life. I guess we'll never know. One of the main characters who returned for Star Fox Zero not only was the whole squad back, but Cat returned for a couple of levels. You can actually find Cat in a couple of them. Naituoso says, I don't rest until I get a dialogue option to fuck Crystal. You and everyone else, buddy. You and everyone else. Lo and behold, though, there is one more game that featured Star Fox, and that is Ubisoft's Starlink Battle for Atlas. Essentially, it's a Toys to Life game. Came out in 2018, and it was the worst-selling game in the Star Fox franchise. And the reason for that is because by the time this game came out, Battle for Atlas came out, the Toys for Life to Life phenomenon was dead. Disney 3.0 bombed, Lego Dimensions bombed, and then Starlink Battle for Atlas, even though it was reviewed pretty positively, bombed as well because people just, they weren't into it anymore. Kids weren't into it anymore. Fortnite was out at that time. But this is actually the first IP that Nintendo let Ubisoft use for a third-party game. So Mario and Rabbids, I believe, came out after. Actually, no. I fuck me. Mario and Rabbids came out before this, so technically this is the second IP that they allowed Ubisoft to use. But yeah, essentially it had low sales. It was a failure in terms of Nintendo's money and the money that they put into it, and also Ubisoft money that they put into it. And essentially, people say Star Fox Zero was the nail in the coffin, which I do. I think Star Fox Zero really was a nail in the coffin. But not many people point to Starlink, which I think when Nintendo saw the sales numbers for Starlink and the Fox McCloud bundled in character in R-Wing, they kind of went, oh, people don't want this anymore. We've seen this before with IPs from Nintendo that just kind of like get lost in time and then randomly come back. And it's because of the fans like us who are still talking about it, still playing the games. And the Nintendo Switch, I mean, out of all the IPs that not come back, F-Zero and Star Fox are like the last IPs that haven't had a release on the Switch. I mean, if the Switch goes for another year, I feel like we're bound to get something, right? Like maybe a remake or something from either of those games. I mean, we got F-Zero 100 or whatever it's called. So I guess that's kind of the F-Zero game for the Switch, but Star Fox has just kind of been forgotten on the Switch. Unless we're talking about the Nintendo Online service, which has all of the Star Fox games, including Star Fox 2. I guess not all the Star Fox games. I retract that. Anything from the N64 back, they have Star Fox games on there. Here's some canceled Fox McCloud games, some canceled Star Fox games. There was an arcade game that was supposed to be a companion to Star Fox Assault, which was supposed to release sometime in 2004 or 2005, was canceled. Maybe Nintendo didn't see Star Fox Assault doing well. I'm not sure. Or actually, Star Fox, yeah. So maybe it was just, maybe they decided to cancel it once the game released. It's hard to say because the game came out in 2005, so it might have been canceled simply because like they were like, well, the game's not selling too well. Who's gonna play an arcade version of this, you know? Also, there was a game called Star Fox Grand Prix. Put a hand in the air. Actually, put a 1 in chat if you remember Star Fox Grand Prix, because it went around for quite some time. So Star Fox Grand Prix was being developed by Nintendo as a troll. Nintendo trolled the leakers. It was specifically, quote unquote, in development to troll people who were leaking Nintendo information. So Star Fox Grand Prix started as a joke in the company. It got out. Nintendo rolled with it. And they got the leakers good. So Star Fox Grand Prix was never actually in development. It was essentially just a joke in the company that someone leaked to the outer world. And essentially what they did is they fed the leakers false information, which then people were like, oh, Star Fox Grand Prix is coming out. No, it was never actually in production. It was a huge troll job. Troll faces in the chat for Nintendo. There's another game that was actually pitched to Nintendo, never reached the state of being developed, but it was going to be called Star Fox Armada. It would have been done by Retro Studios. They were going to incorporate the puppet visuals. So they would have all the characters be puppets and all the stuff be kind of puppetry, kind of like there was like an E3 presentation. I think it was for Star Fox Zero that had like Star Fox puppets, which was the main inspiration for their pitch to Nintendo. Obviously, Nintendo did not pick it up. Who knows why? Because at that time, like they were doing all things fabric and felt. So I don't know. There was also a canceled Virtual Boy game. If you don't recall, the Virtual Boy was essentially VR that would kill you if you looked at it for too long. It was all red and black and woo, yeah. So anyway, Virtual Boy. There was a tech demo shown out at E3 95 that had something similar to Star Fox that they were demoing. And essentially, you know, Nintendo was like, well, we don't want to do the Star Fox game, even though the tech demo was very close to Star Fox with an R-Wing and everything like that. Essentially, the game was turned into a game called Red Alarm, which was, an arcade, shooter kind of game. So it did get turned into something, just not Star Fox. Here's some spin-offs. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but there was a Kellogg game in 1993. It was an LCD game that was in boxes of cornflakes. There was 4 levels, and it included earphones for the little thingamajiggy. Eventually, it did release in stores back in the 90s. So you could probably find like a eBay listing for it if you want to. Probably pretty expensive, honestly. But yeah, Kellogg Games developed a Star Fox game, if you can believe that. There was also a Club Nintendo comic, like a 1-issue comic book that came out. Nothing really too interesting there. And that is essentially it. That's that. I mean, that's where we're at with Star Fox at this point. Star Fox is an IP that a lot of times gets kind of pushed under the rug because I think that Star Fox, even though it has a lot of fans, it just doesn't have the power of the other IPs at Nintendo, especially with with Miyamoto doing everything that he does. He always wants to push Nintendo games, and he's stated before, if they don't have a new fresh idea for a game, then they're not gonna push it out. They're not gonna do anything with it. Which is funny because New Super Mario Bros. The series was pretty stale and doing the same thing for about 4 entries. So take that with what you will. But I think that design philosophy has impeded a few of their IPs, mainly F-Zero and Star Fox. People might mention Metroid in there, but I think that drought is a bit over with at this point, especially with Metroid Prime 4 possibly being around the corner. Maybe. We'll see. But Star Fox is a series that I think a lot of people kind of tend to forget. They are quick games, obviously, but I think that they're mostly are a lot of fun. The problem does start to arise when other studios got their fingers into the IP. And Miyamoto said it himself that once other companies started to take over it and not be developed by an in-house Nintendo studio, that's when the series started to go downhill, and you can definitely see that. Star Fox Adventures, for as fun and imaginative as it is, it's not really a Star Fox game, right? At its core. And that was made by Rare, and I think Nintendo made the wrong call by having them switch direction with the game, and just kind of put a Star Fox skin over it, right? Star Fox Assault, the space combat is really good, but there's not enough of it. Also, there's no like branching paths to go off of either, which is kind of annoying. I mean, there's some things you can do to change things up, but other than that, not really much there. But it's one of those games that had great voice acting, had nice graphics for the time, but just the idea that they presented from the studio who made the game, the on-foot sections was just not it. The on-foot sections just really bring the game down, and I would say about 80% of that game is on-foot stuff, which is just unfortunate because when the space combat is happening, it's amazing. After that, we had the DS game, Star Fox Command, which was pretty much just a multiplayer spin-off, but there was some story stuff to do in there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to, I mean, what do you want? What do you want me to say? It's a multiplayer game for Star Fox, kind of like how there was a Metroid game that was also like a multiplayer only game. What was it called? Like Metroid Commando or something like that. Yeah, I mean, they weren't well received, but they're fun for what they were. And then after that was Star Fox Zero, which was done by Platinum Games, and I mean this. You all know the story of Star Fox Zero. I don't have to be the one to tell it to you again, but that it flopped from the get-go because of the control scheme mostly, I think. Even though there was no on-foot sections, I don't believe, but there was a lot of weird gameplay mechanics in there, like I talked about already. The freaking robot, the unruly controls of the gyro aiming and stuff like that. It all just kind of piled on top of each other and caused the gameplay experience to be lesser than anything before. At this point, for Star Fox, I don't know if we'll get another game this generation. I don't know if we'll get another game next generation. I do know eventually we will get another Star Fox game. And it's hard to say, well, is it going to be good? Do you think it's going to be good? Honestly, I don't know. With the track record Star Fox has, it's hard to say. Star Fox 64 is a 5 out of 5 game. You kind of peaked there, right? That was the magnum opus. After that, everything kind of started to fall apart. And even though there are sparks of hope, it's hard to say what Nintendo is planning on doing with the IP from here on out. Do I hope that they do something new with the game? Yes. Do I hope that they maybe port over an older game and improve it, remaster it? Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I don't even care if it's another fucking remaster of Star Fox 64. Okay, there's a reason why Star Fox 64 has a remaster and has all these different re-releases. It's because the game is damn good. Okay. And Nintendo knows it. Nintendo knows that they struck gold with Star Fox 64, and they've been chasing that ever since. Especially recently with Star Fox Zero, you know. So in the end, I do hope for the best for the Star Fox series, but I think that Star Fox, along with F-Zero, are going to be series that we don't see a lot in the future. But there is hope. There's always hope. Because as soon as you think that Nintendo won't do something, that's when they do it. When you don't think that Nintendo will ever put out another 2D Metroid game, they do it. When you don't think that Nintendo is ever going to shift away from the New Super Mario Bros. Formula, they do it with Mario Bros. Wonder, right? When you don't think that they're going to release a new F-Zero game ever again, they put out that F-Zero 100, you know. when you don't think that Nintendo will ever put out another Pikmin game again, you know, we got Pikmin 3 Deluxe. That's the Pikmin game for the Switch, right? They announced Pikmin 4. So there is something to be said about not believing that they will do something with Star Fox in this generation. And maybe February is creeping around the corner. Maybe the February Direct will have something special for the Star Fox fans. We'll just have to wait and see. So, that is that. That is the history and what I think the future of Star Fox holds. Star Fox is a series that has very strong characters, great music, and the base of it is fun. But what Nintendo did was try and change Star Fox into something that it isn't. And at its core, Star Fox is an arcade on-rail shooter. And I think that's where they need to go with it. I think they need to go back to the basics. I know they tried to do that a little bit with Star Fox Zero, but they fucked it up because they were maybe they were just trying too hard to change something about it. But I think Nintendo does need to go back to basics, go back to the formula that worked, and then build off of that formula, and learn from the other games in the series. Just learn from it. Pikmin 4 is a great example of like them bringing back a series that was kind of dormant for a while, because what they did is they took that core concept of using the Pikmin to, you know, gather items, and they just improved on it 100-fold with Ochi the dog, and with the different biomes and how big they were, and how many things, and the dungeons. They improved the dungeons, and they added the nighttime missions. They did all this work to really bring Pikmin into the next generation. They did the same thing with Metroid Dread. They took the formula of 2D Metroid games, Metroidvanias. It's literally just Metroid with Vania on the end, Castlevania mixed in. They took that formula and they said, okay, how can we improve this? And what they did is they made it into a bit of a different vibe, bit of a more horror-themed vibe, I would say. And they added in those sections where the Yemmy droids are running after you. They put in a lot more work, in the environments and stuff like that, and it worked. I mean, Metroid Dread is a pretty good selling game. They can do the same thing with Star Fox. They can make an on-rails shooter and just build off of what they already have. Or maybe they can't. Maybe they've run out of ideas. Maybe they've run out of patience with the series. It's hard to say. And once again, we'll have to wait and see. All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fair Cafe. If you're here in the live stream, I do appreciate that. Very much so. If you want to listen to this on replay on the VOD, that'll be up on the following Thursday. So next Thursday, you'll be able to listen to the audio version and rewatch the video version if you so desire. The reason that I do that is because my upload schedule for podcasts, the week that I do record the Fair Cafe podcast, is very jam-packed. Film Freaks comes out the next day. Fair 64 comes out the day after that. And I just thought that it would be too jumbled for me to also insert Fair Cafe into that as well, which is why I wait till the next week when I have a slot open for that. Once again, thank you to Kenobi for coming on and talking Andor with me. Really do appreciate that. A wealth of knowledge. Takes excellent notes. I know we didn't get to probably everything on his list, but I do appreciate him taking the time out of his day to chat with me. I do appreciate that. And also thank you to everyone else who is in the stream, lurking, chatting, etc. Appreciate that as well. I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Ferret Cafe. And I think we're going to be doing something special. So keep an eye open for the Discord. And I should be announcing what I want to do in a couple of days here. Other than that, the next episode of Film Freaks with a Z is about Her from 2013. That was actually on my list of some of the best sci-fi movies. So there you go. There's a little thing there for you. Also, there will be a new episode of Fair 64 this weekend as well, as usual. And we got a couple new things coming out this week. The gaming landscape is ever growing. And I caved and I bought Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which I probably shouldn't have, but we'll see if it bites me in the butt. It's one of those games that I like the idea of these characters in Hawaii, so I was like, you know what? I'll get that. It looks amazing, but I say that about a lot of Yakuza games or Like a Dragon games where it's like, it looks great. I know that there's really good stuff in there, but getting to those different things just takes so long sometimes. So I'm hoping Infinite Wealth is more my style. Because I liked the original Like a Dragon game that was like kind of more turn-based. And this game is in the same genre. So we'll see. We'll see how I feel when it comes out. I think it's supposed to arrive tomorrow for me. So whatever. Also, Phantom Abyss is officially in version 1.0. They added like a little bit of a story to it and the actual progression, which is really nice. It's a really fun, like a runner game where you use a whip to platform and stuff like that through like Aztec temples. It's really cool. I'll talk about that as well in the next Fair 64. So appreciate y'all. I will see you all next time. I'm the Ferret and I'm out of here. So long.